It is Monday, November 7th here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the Week 9 recap episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schauf. And back with me again is Adam Krautwurst. Adam, it seems like we're probably the pair to start off the week that's leading up to the first game in Germany, right? You got Schauf, you got Krautwurst. I mean, who else could you be with, right?
That's right. We should get our plane tickets ready. I'm sure I've got family in the motherland waiting for me to come home.
That's right. We got to rub the lion noses, apparently. I was watching NFL Good Morning Football on NFL Network, and that's what you do for luck over there. But we're looking back on Week 9 before we look ahead to Week 10. We got plenty of time to do that this week. Looking back on Sunday's action, we had the Chargers barely sneak by the Falcons with lots of help from Taquan Graham on the fumble recovery that then turned into its own fumble. But more importantly, for fantasy purposes, we had Cordarrelle Patterson return to this game. Was matched in playing time by Tyler Algier. I would think that changes some going forward. I would think we get some more Cordarrelle Patterson as he gets further removed from, it was a knee injury for him, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, he looked great too. I mean, he sticked somebody on a touchdown at the end of the game there. I forget who it was. You'd probably know. You're the IDP guy, but he sticked somebody. First play of the game, they line him out wide as a receiver, get him on a nice little hitch route. Ends up with 2 rushing scores on the day. So he looked great. And like you said, he was a full participant, but they'll ease him more back in, maybe take some of that Algier work away from Tyler Algier, who also looked good. He had a nice long run, breaking tackles. Not that he is a great running back, but he gets the job done there. So it was nice to get CPAT back in the lineups.
I was annoyed to get a successful day from Tyler Algier because I picked up Deion Jackson to start him over Tyler Algier in our Dynasty League on FFPC. But it's not the only league where playing Deion Jackson came back to bite me. We'll talk about him more in a little bit. So, I would expect a little bit less playing time for Tyler Algier. We did have Caleb Huntley playing, trailed those two guys by just 10 snaps. Avery Williams was also involved. I think we'll get some more Cordarrelle Patterson, but it is worth keeping in mind that this is probably going to stay a committee going forward for a team that wants to run the ball. Patterson only got 8 of the 23 total routes among Falcons running backs. That has been an area where they have not used him as much as we would like. We've only gotten a small sample so far this year. It was something he wasn't doing a ton of last year versus Mike Davis either. So I would guess that we're going to continue to not get quite as many Cordarrelle Patterson routes and targets as we would like.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case. I don't even care about overall touches, and I just want him to get the valuable touches, the goal line work, which they give him, the receiving work, which he got some of. I think he'll get a little bit more involved in the receiving game as far as the short screen, stuff intended for running backs, which would be great because he's obviously the best back to do it there. And I mean, I don't even care about carries at all, except for the goal line carries. I mean, look at a guy like Dameon Pierce who had 30 carries for 139 yards and no targets, no touchdowns, no nothing. It's you want targets, you want catches, you want goal line carries.
Yeah, and he got those, as you mentioned, 2 short yardage scores in that game. So no complaints if you played Patterson in his first game back. They've got Carolina next on Thursday night, which should be another matchup in which they can run the ball plenty. And, a riveting matchup to kick off Week 10 of the NFL schedule. Bears after that, so he should be usable there as well. A tougher matchup with the Commanders in Week 12 to be aware of as a Patterson owner. We'll see if Damian Williams makes it back into the lineup anytime soon too. He's been out since week 1 with a rib injury, which I've never heard of before. So I don't know. I would assume he'll be back at some point, but I haven't read anything specific either. On the passing side, we actually got 7 targets from both Drake London and Kyle Pitts in this game. 3 catches for London though, 2 for Pitts. So, I mean, they might as well not have gotten those targets.
Yeah. You know how I feel about expected fantasy points. Pitts was a huge winner in the expected fantasy points and the air yards yesterday, over 200 at air yards. Mariota missed him on a wide open 70-yard touchdown. That's one of the ones where it comes up on the red zone. You sit up in your seat. All right, he's dropping back. He throws. You see Pitts on the screen. Your day's about to be made, and it's just 8 feet behind him and 10 feet in front of him. What is going on? Also had ran a nice corner route. Guy was draped all over him. Ball was out of bounds a little bit. 30% target share for him. So again, you can't ask for anything more really in this offense from him as far as target share and air yards and all that stuff. It just didn't happen for him yesterday. And London's probably, I'm going to hate to say it, but London might be droppable at this point.
Yeah, just because of the situation, because they don't want to fix it. His issue is target share, but they don't want to fix that issue. So it's I wouldn't be shocked if he has a good game or two somewhere between here and the end of the season.
Because he's good.
But when you're making the decision, it's, am I scared that I'm going to miss out on something big? Is he all of a sudden going to start getting 8+ targets every week? And no, he's just not going to.
Right. And if you held him through the Mageddon, like at this point, like there's this, you're going to have room for him moving forward. So yeah, like you said, it's not going to happen for him this year, but he could certainly score because he's good.
I wonder how far we are away from somebody starting up an expected points league where you get those air yards, you get those targets, you get points for where they're getting touches, you get
pass interference points.
Yep, drawing pass interference. There's some nerd that's going to put that together, and other nerds are going to praise it, and there's going to be this tiny little niche that plays it. But I can respect it for whoever does get it going.
I'm in. Count me in.
Justin Herbert on the other side, just 5.7 yards per pass attempt, which disappointing to me because I thought it was a decently easy bet to take him in the underdog pick'ems, knowing that he didn't have Keenan Allen or Mike Williams for the first time in his career. Didn't pay off for me. Oh, well. Josh Palmer did 10 targets, 8 catches, 106. Austin Eckler, 9 targets, caught 7 balls, 24 yards, scored touchdowns again. 8 targets apiece for Gerald Everett and Michael Bandy. Just kind of meh production from both of those guys. And Everett, like, you can't complain too much about getting 8 targets, but he was just 4th among Chargers in routes, trailed Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, and Michael Bandy in that category, played 9+ fewer snaps than all those wideouts, also had Trey McKitty, Richard Rodgers factoring in, ran a route on just 77.8%. So, I mean, that would be a fine rate in general. I would have liked to see Gerald Everett get more than that in a game where they need the pass catching help, though. I'm a little bit disappointed that he didn't. And I'm going to also treat it as maybe a warning signal for once Donald Parham is back on the field, that we've seen spots already where Gerald Everett's exposure dips a little bit, and that's going to hurt his target count. So I'm not saying we drop him. I'm not saying hurry up and trade him, because who's buying that level of tight end, but it's something to be aware of as you're making tight end decisions going forward.
Yeah, he's definitely above a streamer at this point. I mean, he did get 8 targets, and he dropped a massive gain. There was like a 30-yarder over the middle of the field where he was wide open, and it just dropped it right in his hands. So he could have had a really big day. It could have been 6 for, not really big, but it could have been 6 for 60, 12 fantasy points, in regular PPR. 15 in tight end premium, and then we're not having any type of conversation. But when you have a game where there's no Keenan Allen, there's no Mike Williams, you're hoping that he can absolutely smash. A lot of times, with tight ends, it's just like who scores, right? Who's going to score that touchdown? Everyone's going to get 5 targets, and which one is going to be in the end zone. So it's a little disappointing for sure, but at least he didn't kill you. You talked about Josh Palmer earlier. He's a low-end wide receiver 2 when they're without Keenan Allen, when they're without Mike Williams. He's probably a wide receiver 3 when one of those is there. He had a decent game yesterday. I mean, if you started him, you were happy about what you got out of him. So fine for Palmer. We'll see how what the health of this team is moving forward.
James Mitchell and Shane Zylstra. That's the answer. Those are the tight ends who score touchdowns this week.
Have to.
Before we leave the Chargers, Isaiah Spiller, 7 carries in this game. He had just played 4 total snaps previously, 1 carry in week 7 against Seattle. So it looks this week like Isaiah Spiller is the second Chargers running back, because, I mean, that's all you're chasing here. Nobody's looking to use a second Chargers running back, but we all want to know who is the handcuff in case Austin Eckler goes down. Isaiah Spiller was the guy working second yesterday. I can't say for sure that means he would be the next guy up, and I still remain not particularly a fan of Isaiah Spiller. But if you're in a deep enough league where those are the guys that get picked up every week, be aware of that playing time and exposure for Spiller this week.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about him in the deep end last week. Mike Schopp and I, and Mike was on picking up Spiller as a what the heck kind of pickup if you got a roster spot. A lot of guys went on IR last week, so you had some room. Sure. I mean, you want to have exposure to this backfield, to the backups, because every running back's an injury away from having a big opportunity.
Mhm. And Joshua Kelly did hit IR back in
Yeah.
late October, so it took that out of the picture. So it's Sony Michel, who has been lackluster for the most part, and Isaiah Spiller behind Austin Eckler. So both of those guys, bear some watching in deeper roster leagues. On to the Dolphins and Bears game, which was probably the game of the day. 35-32 Dolphins, quarterback scoring points all over the place. Justin Fields, his third straight top 6 fantasy week. He is QB1 in fantasy heading into Monday night. NFL record 178 yards rushing for a quarterback. Had the long touchdown run in that game. Had Mike McDaniel yelling at him to stop it. Also had 3 touchdown passes, though, including 2 to Cole Kmet, which I didn't know was possible on this particular plane.
Yeah. This is the Fields we wanted last year, right? And this is the Fields we wanted the first couple of weeks. It's nice to see that. I'm so mad at myself. I picked up Justin Fields in one of my big leagues, and I had Stafford and Brady, and I just, with all the lineups I had setting, I just went through and I just missed that I got Fields in waivers and just started Brady, who did not do what Fields did. And the plan was to start Fields, and it ended up costing me, which sucks. But I had Fields in some other spots. Hopefully everyone else does too. He's a QB1 moving forward. We had a competent coaching alert in Chicago. Competent coaching alert. Like we have to let people know when there's actually competent coaching in the NFL these days. Fields is running. Fields is throwing. It's designed, purposeful runs. Also, they bring in Chase Claypool to add weapons to the team. So, and just like from the micro, like Fields just looks more comfortable. His ball fake is, I know this is so nerdy. His ball fake is unbelievable. Like he tricked me out 2 or 3 times on the ball fake. And that might be silly stuff that doesn't matter in fantasy, but at the end of the day, it does when it leads to big run chunk gains because the defense is going one way and he's going the other. So he threw a beautiful fade route, dime touchdown to Darnell Mooney. He had an insane 60-yard touchdown run in the third quarter where he made guys miss. And I noticed too, a lot of running quarterbacks are doing this, except for Josh Allen. They're running down the field, and then they're like kind of slowing up like they're going to slide. And there's so many penalties for hitting quarterbacks that they take advantage. They pretend like they're going to slide for a half second, and then they keep running. And the defender like gets caught in no man's land, and they get an extra 20 yards. Fields did one of those in his 60-yard touchdown run. So good for him, and good for the Bears offense.
Now, when you say ball fake for him, are you talking the play action handoff?
Play action, right? Yeah. The play action fakes are looking. He's been. You can tell he's been working hard on his game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice to see. I mentioned the 2 touchdown catches for Cole Kmet. It's just his first game north of 4 targets this year, though. He's had one other game where he had more than 3 targets. So there are formats where you can pick up Cole Kmet this week. I would not consider him a go-to just yet. I would expect that Chicago has to start throwing the ball a little bit more, though. And, he's at the top range of who's going to get targets in that passing game. So somebody that can be fine for you, but not an answer just because he scored 3 touchdowns over the past 2 games.
Exactly. Again, a lot of times with the tight end position, it's all about like who's just going to get that touchdown. But yeah, Chase Claypool was involved early as well, and some screens, some fades. That's kind of his game, right? Made some guys miss just running through him. But he wasn't out there much. He just got there. So expect that to grow. He was out there on 40% of the routes, but it's nice to see that they're scheming things for him.
Yeah, just 4th among Bears wideouts in playing time for that game, but did tie Cole Kmet for 2nd on the team in targets behind Darnell Mooney. So they clearly want to get him involved, and he probably should have drawn a PI call on that play right there at the end of the game. So that's one of those where you wonder if the player's reputation's hurting him in that case. Although I think officials tend to lean away from making those calls if they're at all close late in the game, especially even if they're doing it subconsciously.
Yeah, I mean that comes from the Sauce Gardner school of playing defensive back, just grabbing everybody all over the field and never getting called.
That sounds like a salty Bills fan. David Montgomery worked well ahead of Khalil Herbert in this one, 52-21 in snaps, 14-7 in carries, 2-0 in targets. So he's still contending with Khalil Herbert being in there, but is still ahead of him overall. I think they're both going to be usable for the Week 10 game against Detroit and the Week 11 game in Atlanta. If you look at the Bears' remaining schedule overall, it's the best remaining RB schedule according to our adjusted fantasy points allowed. At the end of the season, it gets a little tricky. They have a Week 14 bye, so you don't want to have key players on bye at that stage. Although if your key players are David Montgomery or Khalil Herbert, then you're probably not in great shape in Week 14. But then they have Philly, then they have Buffalo, and then Week 17 at Detroit. those Philly and Buffalo matchups are not great overall. We did just watch Dameon Pierce run for plenty on the Eagles, though, and we watched 2 straight weeks where the Bills defense allowed some rushing.
Yeah, the Bills defense, they're a tough one to kind of grade. I mean, they had a JV defense out there again yesterday. No Matt Milano, no secondary to speak of, especially as far as run stopping is concerned. I mean, the Jets ran all over them. But yeah, the schedule for the Bears is really nice down the stretch. In fact, it's a pretty big gap between them and the second best running back schedule, which is the Dolphins. So it's just hard when you get a team like the Bears who aren't very good. They're not going to be winning games a lot. So the running back position, you might not get the touches that you want, and they're splitting carries and touches. So it's not something to be super excited about. Now, if you get an injury there or an injury in Miami, which is the number 2 spot, then you're really excited if you have the other back.
Yeah, certainly don't go get either guy, but if you have them, I think that they both could be usable, and they have a nice stretch of games coming up. On the Miami side of this one, I mean, things are what they have been. Mike Gesicki went back to not being a factor. The big thing on the Dolphins side is that Jeff Wilson, days after joining the team, is all of a sudden splitting the backfield with Raheem Mostert. So that tells me that that's what the Dolphins want to do with their backfield, and they just couldn't because Chase Edmonds was much worse than what they thought he was.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, they got rid of Edmonds, brought in a guy that they're familiar with, and right out of the gate, he led the way and he looked good. He had a receiving touchdown. He ended up Jeff Wilson ended up RB7 on the week. Again, it's by Mageddon, but it's good news for him. And Mostert is still probably usable. Now, again, this is a very high scoring game, but the Dolphins are going to play very high scoring games. He was RB23 on the week, so you can almost use him as a flex if you need to. But Wilson looked good, and I think it's probably only going to grow towards him moving forward.
Yeah, and Mostert didn't score a touchdown yesterday. Oh, yeah, he did get a touchdown. Okay, so that helped him get there points-wise. So, yeah, I think it's going to be similar to what we were just talking about with David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, without so much of one guy leading the other, a bit more of them just splitting things. And it's going to be frustrating, but there will be plenty of spots where you need both of those guys to be usable. That should still be the case. They're going to need to play some defense, though. That would help if they start playing some defense at some point, because otherwise there's also going to be lots of trailing games as they had last week at Detroit, which cut into the rushing work for Raheem Mostert. Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek told us again after this game that he's the most accurate quarterback in the league. You with him yet, Adam?
Earmuffs, Jared Smola. I want Smola to put earmuffs on right now. I love Tua Tagovailoa, and I only love him because he does what everyone needs him to do. He does what the Dolphins need him to do. He does what we as fantasy people need him to do. Get the ball to Tyreek Hill, get the ball to Jalen Waddle, every play, all game, all year. Like, I love knowing going into a game, it doesn't matter what the game script is. It doesn't matter who they're playing. They're going to get the ball. He's going to get the ball to the guys that need it. Now, granted, they're wide open. I mean, the Dolphins are number 1 in the NFL as far as depth of distance of separation between the targeted receiver and the defender. I mean, that's no shocker, right? But it's so beautiful to watch. He's comfortable in the offense. He does what needs to be done. So obviously you're starting Waddle and Tyreek, but Tyreek's looking to shatter records. I mean, Cooper Kupp was the talk of the town last year. All we talked about was him winning so much money. Tyreek Hill is right there this year. I mean, if you have Tyreek Hill, you should be absolutely crushing. So yeah, it's good to see those two guys doing well.
I tell you who I love is Mike McDaniel. He just he knows what to do with his players. He clearly knows how to coach them up. He's in the heat of the game yelling "Stop it" at Justin Fields on the sideline. He's in the press conference when somebody asks him how often he talks to GM Chris Greer, and he's like, actually, he's on an earpiece in my ear right now. He told me not to answer that question. The guy has all of the answers on the field and off. He's probably my new favorite head coach.
Yeah, it's really refreshing to see a guy that just, I don't know his history. I don't even think he probably ever played football. It's just like this like nerd that comes in and understand. Like, you hear, I forgot who was a receiver talking about how good he was as a receivers coach. I'll think of it, but all the details he puts into, and all this, even the small stuff that doesn't go on the fantasy radar, is like the way that he teaches them to get off routes, the way that he teaches them to come back and jump into pass interference calls. Like, a lot of that stuff, a lot of receivers don't know to do that. Look at the Bills game, but they, to come back and get those calls when Tua's going to throw the ball short, because he is. That's big time stuff that that he's teaching all these guys, and it's refreshing to see a non kind of football guy come in here and do really, really well.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. Next up, Joe Mixon, 35, Panthers 21, Bengals 7. We have been waiting for positive touchdown regression for Joe Mixon all season. I did not know that all of it was going to come at us in week 9. Does give him touchdowns in 3 of the past 4 games, though. So it's not like it was totally dry. Was his first 100-yard game of the season. Obviously, we're not going to get another game like this from Joe Mixon, but he had been getting the work all season long that was saying a big game is coming.
If I had Joe Mixon anywhere, I would trade him everywhere today. 12th best running back performance of all time. I mean, five touchdowns as far as fantasy is concerned. 12th best fantasy running back. Great game for Joe Mixon. Great game for kind of the Bengals offense as a whole. I mean, obviously the fantasy points weren't spread around too much, but T. Higgins got there. Boyd didn't really get there, but he had an out route for a touchdown that should have been a touchdown that everyone thought was a touchdown at the pylon, didn't give it to him. So yeah, but it looks, Burrow looks great. This looks like second half Burrow from last year. So it's nice to see them get going after a really bad performance last on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, you're disappointed today if you had T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd, but I mean, if the offense scores 42 points, we're not again going to get a game where 5 of those 6 touchdowns come from Joe Mixon. He even took the one that was a reception. So, I mean, that's abnormal. So, no adjustments for me for T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd going forward. We do have a week 10 bye as well, which maybe that gives Jamar Chase a chance at getting back for week 11. The team hasn't put him on IR yet. So I haven't heard that they hope to have him back for week 11. But clearly they still believe that there's some chance it's less than 4 weeks.
Yep. And I think they said, I think it was him, they were talking about how they're hoping he heals better because he's just a better specimen than everybody else. But yeah, the bye will make it 3 straight weeks that he had been out. So even if he misses 4, they said 4 to 6, I think. So even if he misses the one coming out of the bye, if we could get him back. But yeah, Higgins, 8 targets, 7 for 60. So 13 points, wide receiver 25 on the week. Probably Olave will finish ahead of him tonight. So wide receiver 26. So again, not terrible, not going to ruin your week.
We got a mix and trade question from Jack Lombard on YouTube, Adam. He's wondering, should he give Joe Mixon and Kyle Pitts for DeAndre Swift and Mike Evans? You just mentioned the sell high on Mixon. I'm definitely in favor of moving Pitts. However, this would not be the move I go for because DeAndre Swift is absolutely not somebody that I'm trying to add for the second half of the season. Just too much injury issue with him. And the shoulder thing that he has not been able to shake, despite missing a couple games, being limited the past couple weeks, I think he's going to continue to be a health issue the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think that's probably a push for me, the Mixon Pitts for Swift Evans. I mean, do we really think Swift is not going to get back healthy this year? I mean,
I don't know.
If he does, it's definitely Swift and Evans for me, for sure. Especially, I mean, I don't know who your tight end is if you're for trading Pitts, but yeah,
I don't know who your tight end is if you have Pitts.
That's right. I mean, it's probably somebody who's more for fantasy relevant right now than Pitts is, but I would lean towards the Swift side, assuming that Swift will get healthy. And we'll talk about that Lions game, but he looked good in the passing game. They just haven't gotten him back rolling yet.
So there you go, Jack. You got no answer there because we disagree on it.
I lean towards the Lions running back.
He does say that he has Darren Waller, so there is a tight end eventually that's going to play. Yeah. So we'll see where that one goes. And we'll talk about the Lions a bit more coming up. On the other side of this Bengals game, PJ Walker went back to being PJ Walker, got pulled at halftime for Baker Mayfield, who had easily his best passing performance yet as a Panther, 14 of 20, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, did not bring DJ Moore along with him, threw his 2 touchdowns to Tommy Tremble and Raheem Blackshear, who most people probably just learned existed.
That's right. Yeah, Walker was benched after 9 passing yards. I think did I read somewhere in the Scott Fish Bowl he had like negative 12.5 points. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it was bad for him. Baker Mayfield came in, and a lot of times these quarterbacks that come in as backup roles, they get to play loose and free because nobody cares.
Especially when you're down by a lot like they were.
That's what I mean. Yeah, they're getting crushed. DJ Moore saw 6 targets. Most of them were uncatchable. So I hope we're not. I mean, he had 3 straight good weeks. I hope we're not back to weeks 1 through 4 of DJ Moore, but we might be. I think Sam Darnold was activated from the IR.
Yep, today.
Darnold can actually throw the ball more than 20 yards. Walker could too, and that's why Moore was having a good stretch. But if it's up to me, which it's not, obviously, I would try to get Darnold in there because at least he's got some downfield threat. Baker just is terrible.
I mean, it's a bad quarterback situation.
Correct.
We'll just hope that DJ Moore can go back to being okay in spite of it. And like I said, they have Atlanta coming up, so that's good news for whoever's playing quarterback. It's tough to hit the short week with a quarterback question to answer because, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked by any among Mayfield, Darnold, Walker being the starter for this game. It's probably a little bit of a tall ask for Darnold to be the starter off of a short week. My guess right now would be Mayfield, but again, I'm not really sure that it matters because none of these three guys is really any good.
Is it Panthers Falcons on Thursday night? Is that what it is? Oh God. Oh, looks like it's date night. I'm gonna tell my wife there's no game. We're not gonna watch the game. You know how many brownie points I'm gonna get? Unbelievable.
There you go. So the ground game for the Panthers also went nowhere, and that's not surprising when you're getting blown up by the Bengals. Deontay Foreman, 7 carries, 23 yards. Raheem Blackshear and Spencer Brown also mixed in heavily as well. And it wasn't just in the second half they took out Foreman. Those guys were involved before the break as well. Chuba Hubbard should be back soon. This past week, he went limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, then no practice Friday before going inactive. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit more of a committee. Again, short week might give Hubbard less of a chance of making it back for this one. That would be good news for Foreman. But beyond that, I think we're going to get more of a timeshare.
And that's what happens when you've got a team that isn't very good and you've got Foreman who's not involved in the passing game. I mean, he scored 3 touchdowns last week. It's not going to happen ever again for him, probably. So he's a non-pass catching running back on a bad team. The only guy who can get away with that is Dameon Pierce. So I'm happy that, man, I had some Foreman question. I started him in some spots I did, but I also chose some receivers like Juju over him this week. Nice. So that was good. But those are tough decisions. It's so hard when a guy's coming off a big week like that with all those carries. And so, but yeah, so Foreman's more of a lean away from him type deal. Although the Falcons would be a game that they could actually stay in.
Yeah. I mean, if there's no Chuba Hubbard yet, even if Chuba Hubbard's back, there's room for both of those guys to be fine in this game. So if you still have Foreman, he didn't go from God to unusable this week. He just went from facing one of the league's worst defenses to a competent defense.
That's right.
Within a bad offense. So he'll be usable in week 10. We'll see exactly where he sits in our rankings. Those will hit the site by midday Tuesday. And then, we'll see if I agree with Jared on exactly where Foreman comes out.
Yep. That's right. I can't wait to hear it.
Lions 15, Packers 9. And, you can say what you want about injuries, but this Green Bay team just sucks. Let's hit the injuries first because they're most impactful for fantasy. Aaron Jones injured his left ankle in this one, left this game early. He was in a walking boot afterward, but the tests have reportedly come back clean. He is expected to practice and play this week, so we'll have to watch and make sure that he's on the field and that he's going to play in this upcoming game. They have Dallas, so a tougher defense, but a game in which they would probably like to lean on Aaron Jones as much as they can. The ankle, I'm sure, makes A.J. Dillon probably more of a factor heading into the game, even if Aaron Jones is ready to play in this one. So, if you're in trouble at running back, A.J. Dillon might be more of an option this week than other weeks. Romeo Doubs hurt his right ankle in that Lions game. He's got a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks. So it's time to drop Romeo Doubs, unfortunately.
Yeah, drop Doubs. I heard, they were talking Doubs is out. So it's Lazard week. And Aaron Jones said I think he's going to be fine. He said he could have finished the game, and he also, I think it was said today that he's going to be fine for this upcoming weeks, which is good because A.J. Dillon stinks. The Packers stink. Lazard is startable moving forward, especially with Dobbs out. I mean, he had a nice touchdown. He had another one where he should have been in, but refs hate points and they hate fun, so they ruled him down, even though I still think he was in. And of course, they don't score from 4 plays. Rodgers throws it, or I don't think that one was 4 plays, but Rodgers threw a pick off somebody's helmet, I think, on that drive. But then they run a tackle eligible. Rodgers throws another pick. Rodgers threw like 4 really bad picks this game, 3 or 4 against a horrific defense. So yeah, Lazard now with Dobbs out, Aaron Jones are really only startable guys moving forward for this team. And speaking of you and Jared, I heard the little, well, obviously listen to every week, but the Tanyan battle this week. They were playing from behind, but Tanyan still wasn't involved at all. So I think he's back to he's back to a 3-way split again at the tight end spot.
I honestly think that I'm not just for Jared. I think there's some subconscious bias toward Aaron Rodgers, and every time we see Robert Tonyan put up numbers, people are like, "Oh, okay, now they've got Robert Tonyan as an option here." But there's a whole lot more unusable than usable from Tonyan so far this year.
Well, I think what it is too is like Rodgers is not cooked. Like this team is terrible, but Rodgers himself, like if he was on like a lot of other teams, most other teams, he would be doing really, really well. And Tanyan, was awesome 2 years ago. And if he's healthy, like there's no targets there. I mean, there's no people to throw the ball to. So it's like he should be involved more. It makes sense. Now, I don't have a lot of Tanyan, but I get it. People wanting to make Tanyan a thing, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Christian Watson also suffered a concussion in this one, his second one, like his second consecutive concussion in games that he's appeared in. So that's kind of a worrisome situation for him there. We'll see about Aaron Rodgers. It's too bad for Aaron Rodgers' sake that he didn't have a chance this offseason to go to another team.
That's right. I don't feel bad for Rodgers at all. I'm just saying he's not physically cooked. He's not having fun. He's miserable. Him and Brady are miserable. So
I'm just baffled as to why he bothered coming back to Green Bay knowing that Davante Adams was moving down, because I'm sure that he knew that was the case. But,
right.
It's weird. On the other side, Jared Goff stinks as well. We already knew that. It was his first game without TJ Hawkinson, so he threw memorial touchdowns to James Mitchell, Shane Zylstra. Amon-Ra St. Brown was the only Lion to get more than 4 targets or 3 catches in this game. So it was just an unusable passing game outside of St. Brown, which is probably going to be the case more weeks than not going forward. DeAndre Swift, we got to a little bit before. We got warnings from Dan Campbell all week that after playing him a limited amount last week, he was like, I think I gave him 1 too many carries too. DeAndre Swift played 10 snaps in this game, had 2 carries, 4 targets, so even less work than that game. I'm worried that he stays dinged up all year. It's been a month or so, maybe even 5 weeks since he suffered that shoulder injury, and things have not gotten any better. It's gotten worse if they feel like they can't play him for more than 10 snaps. So we already knew Swift came into the season as an injury risk. I just think maybe he gets all the way back healthy, and that would be awesome if he does. I think his ceiling, though, right now is getting healthier and splitting the backfield with Jamal Williams.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation because he looked like, I don't think he re-injured it or anything, and he looked good. I think on the first drive, he had a really nice swing pass, catch and run, looked explosive. Obviously, that's not a shoulder thing. Those are his legs moving quickly. So his legs look fine, but so I don't know what they're going to do. I think you're right on that. They love Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams has been fine. So I think if they can get him back even to like a heavily involved in the passing game, like if he can get like a lot of the Hawkinson targets, because they don't have a lot of other weapons there in the passing game. I mean, I haven't heard anything about Jamison Williams. Like, is he playing this year? Is he going to come back?
The last they said was he was probably at least a month away, and that was a week or 2 ago at this point. Yeah. I have hit the season expecting him to not be a factor this year. Maybe he'll be in there by December, but he's not somebody I've been holding in fantasy by any means.
Yeah. So the upside is this defense is terrible and they lost Hawkinson. So now there's more targets to go around, and Swift is a great pass catching back. So if he can get all the pass catching work from the running backs, still get some goal line carries, this, that, and the other thing, I think he's still startable for sure as an RB2. It's just hard to bench him when he's active. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to bench Swift when he's active, knowing all the running back injuries and the bye weeks and all that stuff that's out there. But it's going to be tough slotting moving forward.
I will say it seems like Dan Campbell is one of the more honest coaches when he's talking to the media. Like, he spent the week saying, I want to make sure that we don't hurt him. We got to make sure we don't overuse DeAndre Swift. And then lo and behold, they used him less in that game. So I think going forward, there are lots of coaches where we hear stuff and we're like, I think once you get into the game, you're going to be playing that guy more. Dan Campbell, I'm going to be a little bit more like, if he's saying this, I'm going to believe that that's true until he shows me it's not.
Yeah.
Anything else from that game?
No, it was a pretty gross game.
Yeah. Now let's move on. Jaguars 27, Raiders 20 in a game that was definitely gross for the Raiders. They jumped out to a 17-0 lead in the first half, 20-7 after that. Then they just stopped scoring. No more points after they got it to 20-7. Davante Adams had 9 catches for 146, 2 touchdowns by halftime. He had 1 more catch for 0 yards among 8 second half targets. There was no more than 3 receptions for any other Raider. So the offense, obviously better than it was against New Orleans because we actually got points this time around, but still struggling, still dealing with some injuries. I think that certainly got in the way some of Josh Jacobs, who like overall was an okay day, 87 total yards. Running backs will have days like that. Didn't happen to find the end zone, but he'll be in better shape if the Raiders offense can be healthier overall.
Yeah, he had 12 fantasy points. Fine. He was a usable RB2, RB18 this week, I think. So yeah, he'll be fine moving forward. We like to get him involved in the passing games as well. So it's nice to see. And he looked great. He looked good. So there's no issues there. But again, it's just, is Josh McDaniels a fake sharp? Maybe. I mean, they can't win, they can't score. I think they're up like 17-0 and just fell apart. But it was nice to see Adams back. He had a great game, back from, he was sick last week or whatever. And, but they have just so many, even with Waller out, they have so many weapons. I mean, Renfro makes an insane catch on the sidelines and like double coverage. He's just so good. They can't get him involved. It's just so weird to see this Raiders offense struggle.
Are you saying that Josh McDaniels is like one of those fake switchblades where you stab and it just sinks back into
That's right. It sinks back into the blade. Exactly.
It looks so real though. On the Jacksonville side, Travis Etienne and Adam, I just talked about Dan Campbell being so honest with us. Doug Peterson was very honest in telling us that the role would not change for Travis Etienne after they traded James Robinson. And since then, 24 and 28 carries. So they traded away James Robinson. They turned Travis Etienne into Derrick Henry.
Well, I mean, the role is kind of changing, or hasn't changed in a sense. He's still not getting pass down work. Like they're not using him as like the explosive receiver that he can be. But yeah, I mean, he's an RB1 moving forward. He's getting all that work. And they're really leaning on him because Trevor Lawrence can't, he's allergic to passing touchdowns. So, 1 more today, a whopping 1 passing touchdown for Trevor Lawrence, saved his day with 53 rushing yards. So that was good. I think he still got there. I think it was QB 10 on the week. So, but against the Raiders pass defense, you gotta, this has to be one of your best games of the year. You gotta score. You gotta throw for 2 or 3 touchdowns against them. It just didn't happen.
I mean, there's only so much you can do, though. If they're limiting the passing volume, and 28 carries for Travis Etienne is definitely limiting the passing volume, especially in a game where they fall behind by 17 points initially. He was at least solid, completed 80.6% of his passes, 25-31, 235 yards, 1 touchdown. So Lawrence doesn't look like he's going to be a ceiling guy for us this year, but if we can get floor, that's really all we need at this point. Christian Kirk reemerged, 9 targets in this game, 8 catches, 76 yards, 1 touchdown. So he gave us the game that we're hoping for against the Raiders.
Yes, exactly. He definitely got there, looked good. It's nice to see them get him involved more. But I never want that at the expense of Evan Ingram. And now, unfortunately, he had.
Now, the one thing
he was banged up a little bit. Yeah,
I think he hurt his back in the 3rd quarter of this one. Came back, but there was limited playing time from there on. We saw more than usual playing time for both Chris Manhertz and Dan Arnold. So, we'll watch his situation heading into week 10. Evan Ingram's not been the best bet going into a game injured in his career. So I'll be very curious to see what his practice participation is this week and what the Jaguars say about him.
Yeah. At least it's not by Mageddon. Hopefully we got some tight ends coming back off by.
That's right. Although week 10, tight end wise, we've got, no Mark Andrews because the Ravens will be on bye. No Hayden Hurst, no Tyler Conklin. And then mercifully, the Patriots aren't going to trick anybody into playing one of their tight ends.
Stupid.
Anything else from that game?
No, I think that's it.
Patriots 26 to the Colts 3 in what would be Frank Reich's last game as the head coach of the Colts. I think it's time to go ahead and end the Sam Ehlinger experiment. Obviously, it's early to call it at this point, but 103 passing yards, 9 sacks, an interception. I saw a note from Lord Reeves on Twitter. Rich Rebar, of course, of Sharp Football, says that Ehlinger is 5 of 13 so far on 3rd downs through his 2 games, taken 6 sacks in those situations. So more than 25% of those dropbacks, 15.9 passer rating. Like, if we got any point in the two games where Sam Ehlinger was like, oh, that's impressive stuff, there might be something there, then I could see it. But it's like, it didn't work out. Let's get an actual NFL quarterback in there. Even though he stinks, he's making a ton of money. He can at least support the target counts for the wide receivers there.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna pour one out for my guy, for Frank Reich. The Bills legend got fired today. But yeah, Ehlinger looks bad. He looks lost. I mean, he's just not ready. And so, yeah, I mean, 300 yards of total offense in this game for both teams combined. I mean, what a gross game. It's gonna be interesting to see what the Colts do moving forward. Like you said, it could bring Matt Ryan in. JT with I think it was a high ankle sprain. He's just not right. If they lose another game or two, I could see them maybe shutting him down later on in the season with the new coach, with the interim coach. It probably doesn't matter to him. So we'll see how that looks moving forward. But yeah, I mean, add Pittman to the list of the 3rd, 4th, 5th round bust receivers. The list is, there were way more misses than there were hits this year. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in another podcast, but yeah, he's just tied up in a 3 wide receiver. Everyone's kind of I think he had 22% target share last week, but there was, Pierce was getting his, everyone was kind of getting theirs. So he's almost unstartable as like a wide receiver 4 unless they get Matt Ryan back and they start moving the ball again.
I mean, Pittman did give us wide receiver 3 level numbers last week in the first Ehlinger start. It has gotten, over 20% in both of the Ehlinger games. So I think it'll be better for him if Matt Ryan is back in there.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's time to totally quit on him just yet. Deion Jackson I don't want to say gave us the game that we should have expected, but probably gave us the game that we should have expected. 11 carries, 23 yards in this one. The thing of note that I guess would not have been predictable heading in is that Jordan Wilkins was right there with him in playing time, beat Deion Jackson in targets 5-3. So it was more of a split backfield than we might have guessed. The only question I even saw was, do you think Philip Lindsay's going to steal from him? My answer to that was no. And that was right, because it was Jordan Wilkins stealing stuff from Deion Jackson. So the takeaway here is less about Deion Jackson than it is about the Colts offense. And it's just not one to bet on right now. We'll see about Jonathan Taylor's health heading into week 10. There is a matchup against the Raiders. So whoever's healthy, if it's in close lineup calls, that matchup certainly helps. But again, not an offense that you want to be betting on too much.
Yeah, not how much you want to be betting on. Jackson, I mean, he did lead the backfield in touches, but it was only 11 carries and three targets. You're not going to get there on that. I mean, he had 10 catches in the last time he started. So, Patriots are a good defense. Ehlinger isn't good, so you just kind of had a feeling it was going to be one of these games. He wasn't a guy I was dying to get into my lineups,
right.
And hopefully, he lost a lot of tiebreakers to other people's lineups too.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he got a fair amount of hype. It was really just this guy is suddenly the starter, and the last time he was a starter, he got a lot of touches. So overall, like beyond the Colt situation, just let it be a reminder that just because one thing happened for one game doesn't mean that's the way things are going to happen going forward. And especially if it's something like a running back getting 10 targets who has never played before, we should assume that that's definitely not going to happen. So if that's the reason for starting somebody, then, need to change the plan there. By the way, we just got a report on who the interim head coach for the Colts is going to be. Did you see?
I just saw, yeah.
Jeff Saturday, the former center for the Colts, was not on the Colts coaching staff heading into this weekend. Has been a consultant for the team, so has been involved. It's not like he's not been in the building.
A consultant. Hey, make me the coach.
I don't know exactly what a consultant is for an NFL team, how much time he's spending there, but hey, I'm here for it. It'll be fun at the very least. We'll see where it goes. I mean, they already dumped Frank Reich and his OC, who had been there since he got there. So I don't know who it was going to be. The defensive coordinator, probably, who has been a head coach elsewhere, Gus Bradley. Whatever. I don't think this matters a whole lot for the offense because the issues are, I think, less about the coaching and more about the lack of talent overall. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, who is he bringing Dan Orlovsky with him to run the offense? Who else is coming over from ESPN? Get him in there.
And maybe it's really just about trying to get Louis Riddick in the door.
Yeah, that's right. Mina Kimes, she can call plays. It'll be great. It'll be awesome.
On the Patriots side of this game, I mean, you don't want to be using Patriots pieces overall. There's Ramondre Stevenson, there's Jacoby Myers. The Patriots don't want to be using Patriots
Right.
pieces overall. They don't want to be on offense. They're trying to get off the field as quickly as possible. Stevenson was okay in this one, did have a touchdown catch to save his fantasy line. JJ Taylor also got 10 carries in this game, though. 3 of those and his lone target came in the first half. So he was involved before the team pulled ahead over the second half. We should have Damian Harris back after the bye. He was inactive with an illness, and now they do have the week 10 bye to get him better, probably even healthier from the hamstring issue as well. So look for something a little bit closer to a split between Stevenson and Harris, but Stevenson, Jacoby Myers, the guys we're using from here.
That's it. Stevenson had a great one-handed touchdown catch in this game. Taylor, we got a goal line carry, like I think right before that touchdown catch. That was kind of gross to see, but yeah, that's it. There's no one you really want to use moving forward.
Jets 20, Bills 17. We got to do it, Adam. Josh Allen played probably his worst game in a while, at least worse that I've seen in a while. And he still sits third among fantasy QBs in points, thanks to that 9 carries, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns, had that like sweep for a 46-yard touchdown run or whatever distance it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's he fantasy wise, he's always going to get there because he runs it and he throws. I wish he could line up and play receiver because they don't have any of those outside of Stephon Diggs. So I wish he could do that too. But yeah, I mean, the pass game was really bad. He threw some unbearable, like the first interception. There's no way he saw him. There's no way he saw, because he threw it. Right now, we're watching it back. The defender was behind a defensive lineman on this drag route. There's no way he saw him. He threw it right to the defender. The second pick, I think Gabe Davis ran out and Josh Allen threw it in. I think there was a miscommunication there because, again, that didn't make any sense. He threw it right to Sauce Gardner. So, but yeah, it was bad. And so there's just, as far as the offense is concerned, I know they've put up a ton of fantasy points this year, but outside of Diggs, Knox doesn't ever get open. Gabe Davis, I know I hate to say it because he has these monster blow up games where he scores these long touchdowns, but he doesn't earn targets. He doesn't get open. Against zone, they really miss, Cole Beasley. I know that's a swear word in Buffalo, but they miss a short guy that can get open in zone coverage. And that's what these teams are doing. That's what the good defenses, when they play these shell defenses, we talked about this last year. That's what the Titans did to Mahomes last night. Mahomes didn't look great. He ends up on the stat sheet good, but he didn't look great. When you get the Titans and the Jets playing these great shell defenses, you got to have playmakers underneath that can get the catch and run. And the Bills just don't have that right now. Allen throws a dime to Diggs down the sidelines, can't get separation. The last play of the game to Gabe Davis, Sauce Gardner rips Gabe Davis' shirt off, and Josh Allen, it was like a 65 yards in the air. He couldn't have handed it to Gabe Davis any better. He hits him right in the chest plate with it, but he's Gabe Davis. So it's like, it's hard. It's hard for them sometimes when you don't have those ancillary skill pieces to beat these shell defenses, So they'll be fine moving forward fantasy wise, but this game might put the Bills over the top for Odell Beckham.
Would you say that Cole Beasley could inoculate them against zone defenses?
Absolutely. Bring him back. Bring him back.
Oh, he's retired now. I don't think we're going to get him. It is worth noting these Jets are legitimate on defense.
Correct.
Going in, I won't be surprised if we get a not explosive game from the Bills. So it's still not a matchup where I'm saying be scared to face them, but don't go in expecting a big game. And there will be some close decisions where it's okay to lean away from whoever's facing the Jets. In the Bills backfield, Devin Singletary dominated playing time still after the Nyheim Hines trade. 47 snaps for Singletary to 14 for James Cook, 3 for Nyheim Hines. I would certainly assume we get more Hines playing time going forward. This obviously was a few days after he got traded to the team. He could help with some of that, short distance receiving stuff. That's obviously been something they've been looking to solve all offseason. They've tried a bunch of different running back options. I think we'll get more Nyheim Hines. I don't really know yet how much more we can expect, though.
Yeah, we can't get less Nyheim Hines. He didn't do. He was barely out there. Didn't do anything. Cook looked fine. I don't understand he had four targets, had some catches. Looked fine, looked fast. This O-line stinks too. The right side of their line, PFF had a 65 grade for the right side of their line, which is terrible. Their line isn't very good. So I mean, Singletary again. I've been saying this all season. Yeah, he has the running back position on the best, or if not one of the best offenses in football on lockdown, and it's meaningless because he can't do anything with it. So now, granted, he only had what did he have? 5 targets and 8 carries in a game where the Bills probably should have run more because they were winning most of the game. So, but and not run with Josh Allen, even though he's the best running back on the team. So we'll see moving forward. But yeah, the Jets have a very good defense, and so the Bills will probably bounce back at the Vikings next week.
Yeah, it should be a get right spot for the offense. And the Minnesota, like the Green Bay defense is certainly not shut down, but Minnesota has been weaker this season than either the Packers or the Jets this week. So
yeah,
be a nice spot for our Bills players in fantasy. Garrett Wilson on the other side of this one, 36% target share, 44.4% of the team's completions, 59.7% of the receiving yards. 2 takeaways for me here, Adam. Garrett Wilson is very good. And that's the only reason that he's going to be relevant fantasy-wise going forward. That level, though, is not sustainable. If we need him to get that much of the pass offense every week to have a good fantasy outing, then he's going to be in trouble. And that might make him a sell high.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, the Jets aren't they're not a very good team, and they don't want to throw to anybody else. I mean, I see on the thing that Elijah Moore says he has 0 targets. He definitely had 1 because he dropped a 3rd down ball that Zach Wilson threw 3 feet over his head that hit him in the hands. But I don't necessarily know if I would. I mean, if you can get something really good for him, like if you can get a real wide receiver 2 for him, then absolutely trade him. Or if you can get an RB2, but I wouldn't mind holding him either for a team that isn't very good and is probably going to have to throw the ball a lot. You know, they lose Breece Hall. James Robinson is not the running back Breece Hall is, so they're not really going to be able to rely on the run game much. Now, they ran really, really well yesterday, but this was the Bills' JV defense. I mean, they didn't have Matt Milano. They didn't have most of their secondary. So, and the Bills aren't a very good run defense anyways. They just rely on getting ahead and making you pass. So yeah, I mean, Wilson's a guy that I'd be okay starting moving forward.
Yeah, he's not somebody that I would make sure to get rid of, but I wouldn't plan on him being an every week starter going forward because you can't expect that share of the passing offense going forward, and I'm not sure how much numbers wise overall we can expect from the Jets. So I don't know. I don't want to overstate it and say that Garrett Wilson's not going to do this again because he just had 2 really good games in a row, and again, he's very good. That's the reason that he certainly could be a wide receiver 3 for you week in, week out going forward. They need to get something else going, though, to help support
correct. I definitely agree there.
Michael Carter split evenly with James Robinson in the second game since the James Robinson trade. Both guys got there for us fantasy-wise. They both scored touchdowns, which obviously made it. Carter was the better bet for yardage, which we expected going in. I think Michael Carter is the first one in. I think James Robinson's going to be TD dependent. I'll be surprised if he and Michael Carter are even on the target counts going forward, but maybe that's what the Jets want him to be.
I hope not. I mean, Carter just looks so much better. Robinson just looks like this slow plodding back. They tricked the Bills on a screen pass that Robinson scored on. I mean, it was kind of it wasn't a walk-in, but it was a pretty easy touchdown for Robinson there because I don't think the Bills thought they were going to throw to him on a screen pass. So, but yeah, Carter looks great. He got to the edge a couple of times. And he was an RB2 last year. So he can definitely get it done. And we don't want Carter getting a ton of work anyways. We want him to get, the stuff that matters. We want him to get the goal line stuff, which you probably won't get, but we want him to get a lot of the pass down work, the 2-minute offense, the long down and distance, all that stuff.
And I think they'll split that stuff near the goal line too. I don't think it's going to be all James Robinson near the goal line. They get a bye in week 10, an okay schedule overall the rest of the way, but looking ahead to fantasy playoff time, the Jets have the 3rd best running back scoring schedule weeks 15 through 17. If you look at our strength of schedule pages, you can filter out to get those specific weeks. And Adam, I did that week 15 to week 17, 3rd best schedule for this team. And you got to like that, especially for an offense that wants to keep it on the ground if it can.
Yeah, that's again, I wish I'll have to go do that. It is really the coolest option here to be able to filter through all that stuff. But I don't know if you have 1 and 2 in front of you, but I wish we could just get an actual backfield that isn't split like, the Bears, the Dolphins, the Jets. Like, can we get a workhorse back there that has a really nice schedule at the end of the year? But
showing your age, baby. Workhorses don't exist anymore. There's Derrick
couple.
Henry, and then there's split backfields.
Can we get Najee Harris? Although I think I traded my last Najee Harris share away, but yeah, let's but no, it's good. Great for them. And that's what you're looking for. It makes those kind of RB2 flex guys definitely startable for you.
Weeks 15 to 17, since you asked,
Yes.
I mentioned the Jets are number 3, number 1, Baltimore, number 2, New Orleans. So we love that.
Let's go.
We'll see who the Ravens running back is. And then we've got that Jets pair right behind them. Tennessee, Derrick Henry could be winning some championships at the end of the year.
I don't want to say it. Injuries got to come. Injuries got to come for Henry. He's 46 years old in football years. Come on.
Vikings 20, Commanders 17. Fine offensive day for Minnesota. Not awesome, though. Dalvin Cook got there thanks to a touchdown catch. Like other running backs we mentioned along the way. Limited rushing, but it was a tough run defense, so not shocking there. He dominated the backfield work way ahead of Alexander Mattison. So a few weeks ago, we were concerned that maybe he was losing receiving work to Mattison. That concern appears to be gone.
Yeah, Cook looked great. I think he scored 2, at least 1, got there. Yeah, exactly. Madison is really just a straight handcuff, and it's so weird. Like, he's so valuable because when Cook is hurt, he's a top 5 running back every time. So, but he has literally like no standalone value. So, but yeah, Cook looks good. And so it's nice to see that kind of make sense. He got there on a receiving score, only 47 rushing yards, but he still got there, obviously. So Justin Jefferson also got there. Speaking of touchdowns, scored his first touchdown since I think week 1, which is impossible. And he actually could have had an even bigger game. He had another fade that got tipped and intercepted. Not a fade, more of a jump ball. And then he had another one later where he had his hands out in the end zone, corner of the end zone was kind of ripped out. So he could have had a really monster day, but obviously you're starting Jefferson every week, and he got there for you.
TJ Hawkinson was a big story coming into this one because he just got traded from Detroit, a surprise trade. Nobody was talking about him being on the move. And all the Sunday morning buzz was he got in the playbook right away. He's going to be more involved than you guys think. He matched his season high of snap share from week 1 against Detroit, played 91% of the snaps in his Vikings debut, 9 targets, second on the team, also his second most of the season, caught all 9 of them for 70 yards. Looks like we're starting TJ Hawkinson the rest of the way.
You have to. I mean, he has to feel so disrespected. He gets drafted highly by a team, then traded in the division after probably feeling super underutilized on the Lions by a coach that played tight end. So it's almost like you're thinking, like, wait a minute, is there something wrong with Hawkinson if the Lions are trading him in the division by a coach that was playing tight end? Like, he would know the position really well. Nope. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. They just wanted the draft picks and they're rebuilding, I guess. But yeah, Hawkinson looked great. 9 for 9 as far as catches are concerned. This is not great news for Thielen, although I think Thielen will still be a thing around the goal line, but not great news for Thielen going forward, but great news for Hawkinson.
On the Commanders side, the offense stunk. We knew that was a possibility. Taylor Heineke, 149 passing yards in this one, and a third of that came on an absurd 49-yard touchdown to Curtis Samuel that really had absolutely no business being a completion.
No, shouldn't even. So stupid. Triple coverage and 4 defenders, if you want to include the referee who was down there tripping up.
No, he was playing the pick, man. He should have been called for OPI.
Oh my God. I want to check his DraftKings account. Okay. I want to see what that referee, like, that was so stupid. Throws into quadruple coverage. And of course, Samuel comes down with it. I think that was like Samuel's like only catch of the game, touchdown. But hey, I was forced to start Heineke in a league during Bamageddon. So I was okay with it, kind of. But yeah, just the offense stunk as a whole. Gibson, only 3 targets. 1 was on the final play of the game, which he picked up 11 yards. And yeah, it was still second on the team in targets with 3. So again, the target share's there, but this was a game where you're thinking like, oh man, they could get behind. This could be he doesn't got to deal with JD McKissick. Brian Robinson is one of the worst running backs in the league. Like, he's going to get heavily involved. I think Robinson saw 2 targets. So it's just, of course, one of those games where he finally could get not a workhorse role, but like a good role, maybe 6-7 targets. And so it just didn't happen. But JD McKissick, I think it's a neck issue maybe, and he, those things can pop up and end guys' seasons just like that. So obviously,
he had a neck injury a couple of years ago too.
I think he did. Yeah. So this could end his season. Obviously, we're not rooting for J.D. McKissic to not play football again, but if you're a Gibson owner, even if you're a Brian Robinson owner, not having McKissic there would be really good.
I wonder if there's a site that I can check the injury history
That's
on
right.
J.D.
I
McKissic.
think there's one out there.
See if I am right about that.
Yeah.
I just did a search, J.D. McKissic injury history, came up with the Draft Sharks results. 2019. Yeah, it was a neck stinger in December of 2019. So I don't know. Maybe that's not related to this one, but it's certainly not a good thing that you have a neck injury in your history. So we'll see where he goes. Was out for this game. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson split. We did get 4 targets for Curtis Samuel, 3 catches, but almost all of his production came on that one play. So if you've got Curtis Samuel and you're like, okay, he was fine, I would like more targets, but he still got there, try to sell him because he barely got there. He should not have gotten there in this game. Terry McLaurin, however, did lead the team in targets for the second straight game. Benefits in that way from Taylor Heinicke being there. Just 5 catches, 56 yards, though. Certainly doesn't benefit overall for Taylor Heinicke being his quarterback, and we'll see what happens with this team once Carson Wentz is back healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still rather have Heinicke out there, but for all the other weapons concerned. But yeah, it was
Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah, that's right. It was just McLaurin's still the best receiver there, but he didn't quite get there. But we'll hopefully he's got some more big games in him moving forward. And kind of back to the running back situation there. Micah Hyde had a neck stinger that turned into an out for the year injury for the Bills earlier in the year. I might go try to trade for an Antonio Gibson on the cheap before McKissic if he gets put on the IR, because Gibson's probably a low end RB2 if McKissic's out, and so you could probably get him for nothing right now.
As long as it's very cheap. Otherwise, I wouldn't be going to target pieces of this Washington offense right now.
I get it. But I mean, for a team that's bad, generally, I mean, it's always, this is the situation we've been waiting for, would be a 2 running back situation in Washington. And Brian Robinson, again, isn't good at all at anything. So like Gibson could lead the team in carries by maybe 1 or 2, and also lead the team, lead their backfield in targets, which is what you want.
Mm-hmm. Seahawks 31, Cardinals 21. You're going to have to adjust for the Seahawks defense going forward. They allowed just 14 points in this game. First drive touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins, a Zach Ertz touchdown with 3:32 left in the game. And in between, the Cardinals did not do a whole lot. Their only other scoring came on a Zaven Collins pick 6 in the third quarter. Kyler Murray, 5 yards per pass attempt against Seattle, 5 sacks, 2 fumbles. The Cardinals fumbled 3 times in total. They only lost 1 of them, so it doesn't show up so much in the turnovers category, but clearly a point of struggle for them. We did get James Conner back, and he dominated backfield playing time, which is nice to see. Nothing much on the numbers front because they were trailing and because they just couldn't generate a whole lot of yardage in general.
Yeah, it was a weird game. They came out gangbusters, moved right down the field, scored a touchdown on their opening drive, I think the first time all year. They were slinging Hopkins. I think Hopkins only ended the game with 5 targets. I feel like he had all 5 targets on the first drive of the game. I mean, they were awesome. They were clicking. Rondale Moore, 30% of the target share. He's been doing really well since Marquise Brown was out. So, nice to see him get going. He's certainly a flex start until Marquise Brown comes back. And like you said, Connor was RB20 on the week, saved by 5 catches, but he was their clear lead back. He's going to get the goal line work. He basically went back to his starter role, heavily involved in the passing game. So that's good to see there. And also Robbie Anderson sucks. I mean, he runs this in route, and I don't even care about Robbie Anderson. I care about Kyler Murray. It's like 3rd down. He runs this in route. He's wide open, hits him right in the hands, drops it. Then later on, he's called for offsides or moving before the snap on a touchdown pass to Hopkins, of course. So yeah, he's just so terrible. I can't wait for Marquise Brown to come back, get this idiot off the field. So yeah, but the offense again had like 2 good drives all game. Kyler Murray, QB 8 on the week, so he still didn't kill you. He had 19 fantasy points, but we'd like to see more out of him in a shootout.
We have 3 games with Robbie Anderson with the Cardinals so far. We've got 7 targets, 1 catch for -4 yards.
Get him out of there.
It's nuts. Zach Ertz, we like that he got us enough fantasy points in this one. The Seahawks have been a positive matchup for tight ends, so we'll keep that in mind going forward. Cade Otton and the Buccaneers in week 10 in Germany if we have no Cameron Brate back, so we'll watch that situation for fantasy. Yeah, you mentioned Hopkins tying Connor and targets. Disappointing game for him, but Seahawks D is for real. I believe them after the way they've played the past 4 weeks. And again, they're the ones who face the Bucs in week 10 in Germany. The Bucs are definitely not playing particularly well on offense, so I'd be a little bit worried about my Bucs offensive players heading into this matchup in week 10.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, the Seahawks defense picked up everywhere. 5 sacks, a fumble recovery. Nice start for them.
Kenneth Walker, 26 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. It, punched that first one. I don't know if it was the first one or the second one. Punched one of them across the goal line on a play that really probably should have been stopped. It was like he ran through a fence to score it. But you love the way that they're using him. And Geno Smith just good again. He's not a monster ceiling quarterback, but 76.5% completions, 275 yards, touchdowns to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They're efficient. It's fun to see.
I love it. I love having pieces of this offense. I mean, Lockett and Metcalf only saw 6 and 5 targets, which you don't like to see, but they were winning most of this game. And Walker's just so good. I might be one of the few people. I don't want Kenneth Walker getting 30 touches. I'm just so afraid he's going to get hurt. He's not Derrick Henry. He's not, 6'5", 312 pounds. He's still a rock solid, prototypical size back, but give me targets, give me receptions. I don't want a guy smashing into other players 30 times a game, unless it's the fantasy playoffs. Then you could do whatever you want. But yeah, he looks good. They're using him correctly. Geno had a really bad pick 6, but looked good otherwise. Noah Fant sighting, six targets, tied for the team lead. He's involved in a trade where you trade away Russell Wilson, then you never really use him. So it was nice to see him get involved there. Not that anybody was probably starting him, but yeah, this offense looks good. You can start a lot of pieces on this offense.
So you're not down with the 3 yards and a cloud of rubber pellets offense here?
No.
We'll move on to the Buccaneers and the Rams. We had the last second touchdown to Cade Otton to win this game. Tom Brady, 58 pass attempts, a season high. It's the 3rd time this year he's topped 50 attempts. Only 280 yards, which by itself is a fine total, but it's not a good total when you attempt 58 passes. 4.83 yards per attempt. He's been under 7 yards per attempt in 4 of the past 5 games. He's at 6.4 yards per attempt for the year. So not an efficient passing offense. The volume should be good enough to keep Mike Evans and Chris Godwin starting for us comfortably, but it continues to disappoint overall.
Yeah, I mean, both these offenses suck. No speed, no big plays. I mean, Cooper Kupp scored on a 70-yarder. I know we're talking about the Bucs, but he scored on a 70-yarder, but it was more bad defense than it really was anything else. But yeah, Godwin and Evans are fine wide receiver 2s. Godwin made an insane shoelace catch, literally at his shoelaces. So they're fine skill-wise. It's just this offense is so bad. There's just no speed on this offense. There's no run after catch. There's no, they're not running crossing routes where guys are picking up. It just looks gross. But like you said, the passing volume is gonna keep these guys startable. The only guy with speed on this team is Scotty Miller, and he drops a freaking game-winning touchdown.
Is it a drop that bounces off your face?
That's right, but your speed doesn't matter when the ball bounces off your face to win the game. Now they ended up winning the game anyways, but yeah, just so bad.
They did at least face a talented defense. I know the Rams haven't been brick wall defense here. So at least there's talent there. They get the tough Seattle defense in week 10, which is legitimately a worry for these offensive guys. We're going to be starting Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, but again, don't expect a huge week. Cade Otton's the one to watch as a potential starter for that matchup, especially if Cameron Brate remains out, which he was out for this one. Rachaad White beat Leonard Fournette in rushing yards in this game, but Fournette continued to dominate playing time, and it remains an inefficient run game for an offense that does not want to run the ball any more than it absolutely has to. So I don't know. It's guys that you hope not to use, but there's at least, I guess, White's getting enough work that if you're stuck, you can play him and hope that he lucks into a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I would never want to start Rashad White. I mean, even Vaughn was getting work yesterday for the Bucks. So I mean, he's got the most minimal standalone value you can have for a backup running back.
On the Rams side, you mentioned Cooper Kupp, and he was the offense. 77% of the Rams receiving yards, despite playing on a sprained ankle. Like he's a god, but it is also, I mean, it's amazing how bad the Rams offense got between winning the Super Bowl and this year. It's not coming back.
Yeah, no. Apparently, it was Robert Woods and Odell Beckham were apparently the keys to this offense. I mean, Henderson is the best back on the team, and he's not very good. Their O-line stinks. And so, you know, they're never really winning games where they can just rely on trying to hand the ball off to kind of run the clock out. And so, you know, they're just going to use him for play action passing, which is fine. You know, Kupp's incredible. You're starting him every week. You're excited to start him every week because they love going to him. Stafford loves going to him. And so that's great. A-Rob, 6 targets, made some unbelievable catches, but, you know, didn't get any red zone targets, and just isn't involved in any downfield passing games. So he's not going to be a top 30 wide receiver moving forward if he's not getting end zone targets. But again, he made a leaping catch in double, triple coverage. He made a diving catch on the sideline. So he's there. Stafford just doesn't like him. We'll see moving forward on that. And then Higbee left hurt again, came back in and out, and is blocking like we said before. So I think did I suggest Higbee over Rondale Moore in a text message over the weekend? I hope I didn't do that.
It might have been you and me saying Higbee, and Jared and Kevin were saying Rondale Moore. But I mean, you know, if I'd known he was going to get hurt, then
well, he's also staying in blocking though too a lot.
Yeah.
So that's really because their O-line stinks. So that's really killing him moving forward. So Rondale Moore over Higbee moving forward.
Yeah, there you go. We'll be on the side of that too, especially now that we know that Cliff Kingsbury will at least leave Rondale Moore in the slot and is capable of sending targets towards somebody besides DeAndre Hopkins, as much as it is his planning over the decision. Darrell Henderson, 12 carries for 56 yards in this one, you know, looked solid from that standpoint, but Malcolm Brown also ran one more route. We had Cam Akers return to the team for 5 meaningless carries, so he got back to midseason form. Ronnie Rivers evaporated. Like, it's a backfield where you don't want to use anything, but if you have to, then it's Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, what happened to McVay getting the running backs involved in the passing game? Like, I know he's not Todd Gurley, but like they used to get Todd Gurley. They used to get every starting running back, even Darrell Henderson last year. They get them involved in these screen games and stuff like that, misdirection stuff, you know, fake the jet sweep, screen to the running back. Like, there's just none of that going on. It's just they can't get anything. It's like what I'm old enough to remember when Rams versus Bucks was a great freaking game to watch. High scoring stuff everywhere. Within 6 months, it's unbearable. No one knows what they're doing.
Darrell Henderson, by the way, this was his season high in rushing yardage. And he had 5 targets back in week 1, 13 carries, 5 targets in that loss to the Bills. So it's not ancient history that we get rushing and receiving. It just doesn't look like it's present day either.
Right.
Let's move on to Chiefs at Titans, which is more fun to talk about. Overtime game Sunday night. The passing game will be non-existent for the Titans as long as Ryan Tannehill's out. It's barely existent when Ryan Tannehill's there, but clearly when he's out, it's just not part of the thing. And it's not all Malik Willis's fault. He threw a really nice sideline ball to Nick Westbrook-Akine at one point, and it just got dropped.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's not the answer right now. I mean, give him some time. And I don't think they wanted him to play right now. Oh, yeah. Tannehill gets hurt, but that's kind of how it works in the NFL, man. You kind of get thrown into the fire, but he's not ready. And so I was thinking even at the end of the game when they had to score, they should have just kept handing the ball to Derrick Henry. I mean, a better chance than what, I mean, he's running around back there like he like the ball is glued to his hand. Like he refuses to. You throw a pick, the game's over. So what? But you're running around back there, losing 15 yards a pop. So he's not ready. But whatever. There's not much to say about the Titans. It's Derrick Henry or nothing for the rest of the year. So that's all we have to talk about is Derrick Henry for them.
I could hear you on the first play from scrimmage.
Yes.
On the Chiefs side. Kadarius Toney caught a pass the very first snap, and then he played 8 more snaps for the game, saw 1 more target, 6th among Chiefs wideouts in playing time for that game.
again, I can't be too upset about it because it's not like he was out there the whole game and they weren't throwing him the ball. Because then we'd be like, why did you go get him to play him and not use it? He clearly this was the plan going in. He's still learning the offense. He's only been there a week, and it's Kadarius Toney. There's a reason why the Giants didn't like him. I don't know what it is, but it's not like he's some like wizard and going to learn the playbook probably in 4 days anyway. So
I don't know. He seems like the studious type. I'm sure he's up late in that playbook, making sure that he learns everything he possibly can.
Right. So I mean, between that and his rap career, I'm sure he's in there. But again, so at least they put him out to the first play. Hey, we're gonna get him involved in a design play screen. He's super quick. They gave him one later, but disappointing there for the people who tried to get Toney into their lineups. Kelsey and Juju both got there. They didn't score touchdowns, but overtime game where Mahomes throws for 430 or whatever yards that he threw for. It's nice to see Kelsey and Juju still get there. Juju is wide receiver 8 on the week. Quietly wide receiver 19 on the season with only two touchdowns. So I'm assuming hoping he'll score more than 2 in the second half of the year. So you're definitely starting Juju moving forward, because I don't even think when Toney gets going, I think he is going to hurt like Mecole Hardman more than he's going to hurt Juju. I think Juju's running like those pure outside receiver routes and stuff like that, like a number one receiver would, whereas Toney's going to be more gadgety, short range type stuff. So that's what I think moving forward. So I wouldn't try to trade Juju high here.
I don't think that Toney climbs higher than 4th among Chiefs wide receivers this year, because I don't see the appeal to trying to get him ahead of Mecole Hardman this year. I think this was a matter of taking a shot on somebody with longer term upside at a reduced cost. But like, they already have Mecole Hardman. He's been with the team for several years. He's faster than Kadarius Toney is. So I don't know. I'm not expecting anything from Kadarius Toney going forward. Certainly if we get 68 pass attempts from Patrick Mahomes any further games, everybody who's on the field is going to be supported.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how you only throw 1 touchdown pass on 68 pass attempts as Patrick Mahomes. I know he ran for 1 and then ran for the 2-point conversion as well, but 1 touchdown on 68 pass attempts is insane.
Really hard to do.
10 catches apiece for Juju and Travis Kelce here, 9 for Mecole Hardman. We had 8 targets for Jerick McKinnon in this game. 9 targets for Mecole Hardman, 6 catches. 6 catches as well for Jerick McKinnon among 8 targets. The backfield split pretty evenly among Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Nobody could run for anything in this game among Chiefs, but McKinnon had a decent receiving day, and it looks like he's the favorite receiver among the 3 of them right now, though at least CEH is still somewhat in goal line plans.
Yeah, it's just they're unstartable in a sense that you don't know. There's probably one of them that's startable every week, but you have no idea which one it's going to be. You're going to need an injury there to really kind of siphon out some of that work. And again, the Chiefs are a lot like the Bills. They struggle on offense when they play these shell defenses because they don't want to run the ball. They can't really do it very well because they don't have good running backs on either the Bills or the Chiefs. And so they're just like, hey, I'm going to let my all-world quarterback drop back and throw 60-something times. And it looked like, it wouldn't have worked yesterday if the Titans had any other quarterback in the NFL on the roster. It's just Malik Willis isn't ready to play quarterback in the NFL. And so as soon as the Chiefs scored, you kind of knew it was over. So, but yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how that does for them moving forward, but they're gonna have again monster games. This wasn't even a shootout, and they all got there. So yeah, you're obviously starting all your Chiefs.
Yeah, Tennessee is probably a better defense overall than they get credit for. They play the run a lot tougher than the pass, but overall they're 11th in Football Outsiders DVOA, so not a pushover defense. Next week is Jacksonville in Kansas City. The Jags are 27th in pass defense DVOA, so that should be a week for the Chiefs to do whatever they want with the pass offense. 14th in run defense DVOA, so it could be a matchup that supports the Chiefs and not wanting to run the ball and throw it as much as they can.
Yeah, it's almost too with these elite offenses. Like you just want them to be balanced in these games. Like do a little bit of both. When they can't run or when they can't do one or the other, it really slows them down.
That's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Our week 10 projections and waiver wire articles for varied league formats will hit the site by midday Tuesday. We will have our rest of the way rankings updated by the end of tonight's Ravens Saints game. They feed our exclusive free agent finder, which can help you see exactly who you should add in your specific leagues among the players available. It'll show you all the players that are out there on the market, recommend who you should pick up, either going by this week's projections or the rest of the season projections. Of course, Wednesday, you'll be able to find Jared's weekly usage report. You'll be able to find pass rate over expected numbers by Timmy Hernandez, my free top plays for underdog pick'ems. And then Adam, are we going to get a deep end visit with you and Mike that night?
Yeah, we'll go deep end on Wednesday this week. We'll go through some waiver wire stuff. We'll go through some of the big topics that happened over the week. Maybe we'll get some more hirings and firings going on here. Yeah, come on, jump in the chat. We'll answer any trade questions or start sit questions.
For Adam Krautwurst and the rest of the Draft Sharks crew, I'm Matt Schauf saying thanks so much for swimming with us.